come upon the space that you all have inhabited it during that 100 years. You know, our life began as within your 100 years. Isn't that wonderful? In the same space, and now we're together. It's a beautiful thing. And because, you know, we began, our community is a part of, obviously that's been in America, it is history, we know it's nothing to hide, it's part of a struggle. There's been a struggle in America for a people to see their humanity free. You know, a people's humanity was degraded, you know. The process of being humans was taken away from them. So our community is really a product of that struggle. It manifests different ways. It's no mystery now. They're saying in many of the books that a great percentage of those who were enslaved were Muslims. And of course, when you look at the areas where most of them came from, I travel there now quite a bit, and I meet with a lot of them. Areas are predominantly Muslims, where a lot of the slaves came from. So it makes sense that they were Muslims. One of the slaves that we actually inherited some property that we didn't know. We're building in Southeast right now. Some of you know we've been in the Southeast. We had property there for about 5 decades, and we purchased some property. And the name of a slave master named Bill, he enslaved a Muslim name was Yaru Mahmoud. And some of you may be familiar with that name because he's very popular now. Really, not just in D.C., but around the world. He was enslaved in 1752 and brought to America and brought here in 1752. Now, of course, we know, well, America wasn't even a country then, And so that tells us, but he was a Muslim, very scholarly. He was obviously he was young, among those who was captured, and he ended up here, of course, he ended up getting his freedom. He ended up in Georgetown, ended up getting his freedom. His slave master had promised him he would let him be free. And he said, if you do this for me, I'll let you be. He was very good with his hands, very good with his mind, and he wanted him to build him something specific. And he said, if you build this for me, he didn't have to ask him because he was a slave. He was his master. He could have made him do it. But that's just tell you he was blessed to have one that wasn't as cruel as some had. And so he asked him, he said, if you do this for me, I'll let you be free. And what happened was he died. He died before he was able to build it. But Yaru, because of how he was raised and what the Quran says about when you make an obligation, an oath, you say your word, you still do it regardless. So he still built it. He did what he wanted done. And the wife honored what her husband said and set him free. And so I think it was 1860 or so, Yaru was free in Georgetown. God blessed him. He was into financing. They used to hear him chanting, walking around, and he would be chanting. And there's an author that lives in Maryland named John Johnson. He has a book out that's called From Slavery to Harvard. And it's about Yaru and about his descendants. And of course, obviously, that tells you right there that they ended up going to Harvard. And so Yaru, about maybe 6 years ago, we were going to do a project to honor him with a prayer, a Muslim prayer, that he would have wanted, that we know he didn't get because the way things were. He wasn't free to practice his religion at the time. And so we were going to do a ceremonial prayer in the area where his home was. In the book that Jack Johnson wrote, he said in his book that in the backyard, Yaru used to put a prayer rug out and pray facing the east in that spot. He said that's where he's buried at. And so what happened was, and you may have read about this, is very popular in newspapers, in the Washington Post and others. Someone purchased that property, and they were getting ready. We know how profitable property is here in D.C., especially in Georgetown area. They wanted to go ahead and begin to make that very, very profitable. So we asked them to give us some time. We worked with the D.C. Historic Preservation. We got with Florida State University, Howard University, D.C. government, some federal. We got even with the museum, National Museum of African American History, and to see if they would give us some time to excavate, to see if we could find his remains, and that will be something that we could contribute to solidarity among us as human beings, his story. And so we did. We started for a while. We got down to the 1800s, And we began to find things that was in his home in there. But what happened, the owners became very impatient. They said, we gotta stop the project. So we had to, we stayed where we were at the 1800s and with some few things. And we did a ceremonial prayer to him there on the property that we believe it reaches his soul. Because the soul never dies. Obviously, the soul can't die. The flesh goes back to the earth, but the soul comes directly from God, doesn't die. It goes on, as we all believe that as part of our faith. There's life after this death here. So descendants of enslaved 85 years ago. Again, some say by genetic memory. Some say genetic memory. This term Islam starts surfacing in a society, and they begin to embrace this message. So in the year 1935, an individual, we look back in 1935, you don't hear anything about the term Islam in the D.C. area. It's not anything permanent, not anything fixed. But an individual comes here. His name is Elijah Muhammad. Now, I'm sure you heard of that name. Very popular name in this society. He was once considered to be the most significant, quote-unquote, black man in America. Of course, there were things that were achieved that no African American had achieved in America's history. And, of course, the National Museum of African American History is highlighting those things. And a lot of it has to do with doing for yourself, being in business. And more businesses came up under his leadership across America than any other time, really, they say in America's history. And they say that no African-American leader has produced 4 world figures. 4 world figures. Not even Dr. King has produced 4 world figures. And who are those world figures? You have Muhammad Ali, and very known. We have Malcolm X, well known. Imam W.D. Muhammad, his son, who again transitioned everything. And then you have Louis Farrakhan. Those are the 4 people that were students of his. And so he came here in 1935, not to really, he didn't come to really start a community. He really came to go to the Library of Congress to read a lot of books. And again, so just so you'll know the nature of our beginning, this community, just like in the history of America, African Americans really, reading was something that they were denied. Reading was something denied. Education was something denied until it was shaped a certain way at a certain point. But he was a person, before he came in contact with this language of Islam and Muhammad and Muslim, he only had a 3rd grade education, coming from the South, coming from Georgia. He only had 3rd grade. His father was a Baptist preacher, by the way. And but he began to be educated with this movement from an individual that came from an area that's known as Pakistan today. It wasn't Pakistan back then. That later on became Pakistan. But he came to the area. He was a member of a mystic order, I would say. And he had been studying the struggle of Africans in America. He had trouble, and if you study his part of the world, you would see there was a lot of trouble there as well. But he studied Daddy Grace, Noble Drew Ali, you know what I mean, Marcus Garvey. He studied all these other movements that were going on. And so he tried to find something that would be real strong. And again, he coming from lands where Islam was strong. He was a Muslim. But he didn't want to just, he didn't see that Islam proper would help with the condition that they have gone through as a people. So he shaped it a certain way, and he put it in language and codes to eventually they would come to the true universal religion of Islam, which you all should know if you don't know. Connected. It's not separate from, but it is connected to Christianity. Islam, universal and proper, is connected to Christianity and also to Judaism. If you ever looked at the Quran, you would see that all of us are in one, not separate, not 2, not 3, but in one scriptural reading. Almost all the prophets that we find in the Old Testament, or we say Torah, or in the New Testament, it's called the Injil or the Gospel, almost 100%, you'll find those prophets in the Quran. And the stories There's some differences, but they're pretty much similar. You talk about Joseph, nothing changed about the story of Joseph. You know, he had a vision, told his father. Father told him, don't tell his brothers. You know, his brothers put him in the well. All right, they were going to let him stay there. Then they saw the caravan. I mean, that's similar, right? Isn't that similar? That's a similar story. And it goes on. That's but I'm saying the same. Noah, the same thing. You found Moses, get the people. Those stories are there. You know, the whole chapter 19 of the Holy Quran. Again, this is something that's special that Christians, when they hear this, because it's something that's not even in Christianity, that there's a whole chapter 19, that's called Mary, the mother of Jesus. That chapter to Jesus' mother, Mary. And her story is in the whole Quran. It's in the family of Imran in chapter 3. You hear the story about Zechariah and everything when they was trying to cast lots with arrows to see who was going to take care of Mary. The whole story, all that's there. When Mary said she was visited by Angel Gabriel and said she's going to have a son, and she said, "How can I have a son when no man has touched me?" And that's there. That's in the Quran. So again, I wanted to say that one scripture. So he knew that. He understood. He knew that at some point we were going to come into the universal, but he shaped it a certain way to do a hybrid version of Islam to help us deal with some of the social issues, some of the social reform that we were dealing with as a people here in America. And because you look at Muhammad Ali, look at Malcolm X, and that just tell you what the story was, why it was necessary to go that route. And as you see, Muhammad Ali went through phases, and he became universal, dynamic world figure. He was the most loved, most popular, most familiar person in the whole world. The name Muhammad is the most popular name in the world. But anyway, he built a message that had Muhammad in the Quran, the whole Quran. And I will say this: in the Quran, there's a translation, and you hear this. And what I said to you, you say, "Yeah, we hear this all the time." That says, "People of the book." I know you've heard that before. People of the book. That's a translation from the Quran. But if you look at the actual language of the Quran, and we are taught to learn the actual language that they spoke. Arabic, really close to Aramaic. I went to learn Arabic, and I had 7 teachers. And the teachers were saying, they were all from the Middle East. They were from Egypt, Syria, Iraq, Morocco, different places. There were 7 of them. And they were saying things like, "Assalamu alaikum." Which that's peace be unto you, which you'll find it in the Bible too, but you peace be unto you, you see it there. But you check it back, and you'll find, you'll hear that shalom in there, that salam in there. They were saying things like, "Inshallah," if it's God's will. They were saying, "Alhamdulillah," praise God. So I thought that those teachers that I was learning language from, I thought they were Muslims. But I was surprised to find out only one of them was a Muslim, and that one, I thought that was a Christian. She act more like a Christian, and the Christians act, and the rest of them were Christians, and they act more like Muslims, And they gave me a Bible. They gave me a Bible in their language, and it starts off like this. I can go on, but I'll tell you how it starts off. And if you know how the Bible starts off, you'll know exactly what I'm saying. It says, "Fil bidaya, khalaqa Allahu samawati wal ard." Right? And of course, in the beginning, Genesis, right? God, but did you hear G-O-D? You didn't hear G-O-D, because that's really not the language they spoke, right? Fil bidaya, khalaqa Allahu samawati wal ard. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. So, in this book, where the translation says, "People of the book," and that came from the Middle East, and they had bad relationships before these translations were put into English. They had bad relationships with the Christians and others. We know about crusades and other things, and so translations came after all those bad relationships. And so they could not, this was the best they could do with the translation, by saying "people of the book." But really the actual translation, the better translation, the actual language says "Ahil Kitab," "Ahil Kitab," and that means family. Almighty God said that we are family. Christians, Muslims, and Jews are family. But they couldn't, the ones who translated it, they couldn't say that because they couldn't see them as family, because family, you close people, I can justify you being away. you know. But I'm giving you what the actual Quran says. We're called family. We're called family. And God actually says that Christians, that you will find among the family closest to you, will you find those who call themselves Christians. And this is a picture of it right here. You know, we develop a relationship over here, and we're close. We're close, and we're trying to do more things together, and we're trying to share space together, and work together to maximize our resolve for a better society, a better world, a better space. We share this space together, and this troubles us. Some of the things we hear, we see, and together, the more we strengthen ourselves together, we can make changes. That's why it's important for us to come together. So our history started 1935, and it evolved to where we are now, to this beautiful picture of oneness. We put it this way, we have transitioned since 1935 from small circles of self and nationalism to broader circles of oneness and humanity. That's how we express it. So, and we're here today. And we're involved in everything. We're involved in everything. I've been in the military for 30 years. I participated in 6 military campaigns. 6 military campaigns. And it wasn't Allah's will that I give my life. We know we're commemorating Memorial Day this weekend, and we're commemorating those who made that ultimate sacrifice. They said there's no greater sacrifice. Why is there no greater sacrifice? You see, because the sacrifice is based on how many people the sacrifice benefits. That's why that's a greater sacrifice, you know. When I went into the military, the commander at my graduation, he said, doctors save lives, firemen save lives, police save lives, but you will not only save life, you will protect a way of life for everybody. And I was young. I just went in. It was something that it stayed with me. You know, the impact of my serving. You know, and it's called service. You know, we all are supposed to serve. You know, and that's a service. They serve. And you know, they say it's a very small percentage of the actual American population. It really serves. You got these small percentages do something that most of the people have never done and will never do. But they do that, and they put their life on the line. So I came here. He retired in March of 2010. I retired from the military the same time, and they needed an imam. And I'm a pioneer of Islamic chaplains in the military. They didn't have any chaplains. Accommodations were very slim when I went into the military. So I helped pioneer that, and I've been involved in a lot of different things. I was very active as a Muslim, very active, never hid, very active, very involved. And because I started here in D.C. as a young man, my adult life really started here. Teenager, then transitioned to the adult right here at this community with him and many others. And then they obviously saw me travel the world and do things, and they thought, because of where the country was at that time, in 2010, some of you know, Keith Ellison was on the stand. They had Peter King. They were saying Muslims can't be trusted. They're not loyal. These kind of Islamophobia was hitting real strong, you know. And so they said, well, here you are one. You're learning in the religion. You help, and your life's online. You prove that wrong because you show your loyalty. And I was just one of many. And my wife and I had, and I'll get ready to end with this here. My wife and I we had 3 children. And then when the youngest one turned 8, we adopted an additional 3. And we weren't looking for this. It's just circumstances. There were 3 siblings. they were in Alabama at the time. And the parents were married, but what I think happened, and what many think happened, is that the mother was really a victim of opioid addiction. But they went, obviously back then, this was some time ago, they didn't look at it, it didn't get the kind of attention that it's getting today. So she eventually got into really extreme drugs. The worst cases that you can think of, that's how the mother ended up. And of course she ended up just disappearing. This was real sad. And the father went the alcoholic route. And he went extreme with the alcohol and but trying to keep the kids together. Again, they wanted to have a productive family, obviously. They got married, he wasn't doing well with alcohol and children out with him. And obviously, the kids were the twin. He had a set of twins that were 5, and the little brother that was 2. And so social services got involved, and they had now they got to take the kids out of that home because it's not fit. It's not working. And so they found a home for the 2-year-old. But they left them in the home until they got a home for all of them to take them all out of the home at the same time. And that hit him and then they said now they get ready to find a home to separate the twins. And so all of them would have been in separate homes. And with the consciousness that he had, being on alcohol, he reached out and just put out the best call he could for somebody to please get my kids and keep my kids together. And because that call, nobody responded. It reached my wife and our ears. We were in the military, so we responded. And military helps you with that too, so it made it a little easier as well. I mean, it was tough, but it made it easier as well. So now we ended up with 6, after adopting those. And then we ended up, because after going through that, the process let us know so many children is in the system lost. So we fostered 9 children. Not at the same time, but you're trying to foster 9 children over time. You get them, you're trying to help them, keep them, that kind of thing. And but out of those 6, 5 of them I ended up touching the military some kind of way. 5 of them ended up touching the military some kind of way. With the exception to the youngest one, he's in the culinary and he's doing big time culinary stuff now for sports teams and stuff like that. All of them have gone in. Some are out. Some are still in. My son, he's a captain in right now in the Air Force Reserve. My daughter, she's in the Air Force. She's a master sergeant. And the others have gone in to come out. But all of that, I got all the services accounted for. And again, to nullify this thing about Muslims not loyal, all this stuff. We're citizens. I'll end with this. We mentioned Imam Muhammad, and we say, may God be pleased with him and expand his place of rest. He picked up the American flag, and he was the first imam in America's history to physically pick up the flag. It was on the flagpole. He picked it up on the pole, and he picked it up at a time when white Americans were burning the flag. And we know how African Americans felt about it, but he picked it up at a time also when white Americans were burning the flag. And he said this. He picked it up. He said, if you all won't pick it up, and again, you have to understand the history that he inherited after his father, because we know the story of Muhammad Ali. Going into the military was something that was prohibited. Not killing, not taking life, that was a big deal. And so he picked it up and he said this. He said, if you all won't pick it up, I will. And he said, if you say you're a citizen, if you claim citizenship, you have an obligation to support the society where you claim citizenship and not work against it. It reached me. I wasn't old enough to join the military. I wasn't there when he said it, but my uncle, he was connected to that, and he brought that back to me. And I was a teenager at the time. Teenagers are always dreaming about what they're going to do and what they're going to be. I had other dreams, but the way it came back to me, it said you should go in the military. And so I changed my plans. I went in the military, and then the rest is history. And it was a good thing. I ended up when I came here, based on that history and my work, with less than a year, I'm eating dinner at the White House with President Obama at his table right beside him, eating dinner, and things just kind of took off from there. And of course, just recently we were at the White House again, speaking with President Biden. Had us speak at the Eid celebration. There at the White House. But again, that and embracing, and et cetera. So we're here, and we're just grateful to be here with you. We just thank you again for hosting us. We always respond very favorably when we hear invitations coming from Father Barber. And he has such a wonderful team, too, James and everybody. Some of the familiar faces that we've seen other times. We see some new faces that we haven't seen, but we certainly see some of the older faces that were here to welcome us previously, and we are very grateful and honored to be with you. Thank you.
according to the plaque you have on the fence
Yes.
in front of the
The building,
machine,
yes.
I think that it states that the first mosque in the nation's capital in 1935 was built here, or am I mistaken?
Yeah, this is, thanks, Father Barber. The mosque, first of all, it's the oldest Muslim community in Washington, D.C. We know that. It's among the oldest in America. It's part of the oldest in American history. Really, it's a major part of the foundational community that established Islam in the public life. I just mentioned some of the popular names like Malcolm and Muhammad Ali that made Islam popular. But this mosque is the first mosque built in all of America. And again, I say this clearly now, not the first one built in America, but the first one built in America by American citizens.
Oh, okay.
And those American citizens were descendants of enslaved Africans. So this is the first one built that meets that criteria. All the others that were built before that were built by those who were migrant. They haven't gotten citizenship yet, which is Cedar Rapids, Iowa. You have the Syrians. The Dakotas were from Lebanon, etc. They were migrants, and we were actually, again, citizens, and then the citizens of the slave house. So this mosque, very historical masjid here in D.C. Thank you.
Questions now?
Yes, ma'am.
Hold on a second, so that Facebook listeners can hear.
So my question is about the history of your mosque and your community after 1935, and particularly how you went from, I believe,
No, it's on the, so they can streamline hear you.
oh, okay.
But here you have to raise your voice up.
Okay, so I believe that at some point you moved away from the Nation of Islam and became a more Orthodox Islam
Yes.
community.
Yes.
I would like for you to tell us why you did that and when that happened.